Welcome, beautiful people, to Petrify the Patriarchy. I'm your guide, Joe B. If you're ready to unearth the subtle ways patriarchal culture has shaped your world and uncover the hidden power within your own shadow, you're in the right place. Here we don't just speak truth to power, we wield it, turning stagnant energies to stone so that your authentic, liberated self can truly flourish. Let the unlearning begin. Hey, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Petrify the Patriarchy. Last time, or maybe last segment, depending on how you're listening to the few pieces I've got out so far, I really started to get vulnerable with you, and I wanted to spend some time diving into some of my my belief systems and things that I have found to be super problematic for me out there in the world while I dive into the rest of my story. And I started to share the beginnings of my journey into what it is that I'm doing here. And it's super deeply personal. I have not shared it widely. My friends and my family are, my close friends and family are aware of the things that I have experienced in the last handful of years. But I have not widely put it out, and I'm starting to do that, and it's important for me to share what it is that I've gone through, because stories and experiences change people in a way that data and numbers don't always do. And so I know my journey and my experiences, they're not for nothing, right? They have changed me and transformed me into somebody that I never anticipated ever having to become, number one, but I never would feel this sense of freedom and liberation had I not gone through what I've gone through. And so it's been a literal rewrite of my own life as I dive deep into the research that I've been doing, and the journey of unlearning these cultural belief systems that we all participate in. And these moments, and I'm going to just say that the way that I define them is the universe punching me in the face over and over and over again, right? And it's been raw, it's been painful, and while I feel like I've gotten to a point where I can really express myself in a way that is much more, much less, it's coming from a much less emotional place and more through I made it. And let's talk about these specific aspects of it, so that maybe somebody out there who is listening might understand the level of discomfort that I have had to live through, and I'm still living through as I share this more widely shared space, but that story is important for me to get out, and that's why I'm here, and I have this huge drive to be here and share, and also kind of throw my work out here for others to gain insight from, because what we're talking about today, learning to be comfortable with discomfort, when we are talking about shifting our internal belief systems and then embodying that shift to advocate out there in the world, we're causing disruption, and disruption is uncomfortable. And we're going to talk about all the different ways that happens today. And it's an important aspect of being a responsible citizen, is to understand what it's like to be comfortable with discomfort. And I think there are a lot of us out there, and I know I am one of them, and I will fully admit, I prefer comfort, I prefer certainty, I prefer easy, right? These are things that I want in my day-to-day existence. I just want to know what's coming next and I can plan and prep for it, right? But for a huge portion of us, and I do think this is global, I don't think it's just a United Statesian way of existing, we're taught to avoid discomfort at almost all costs. And that certainty and comfort and ease that we want can actually be our anchor that can keep us stuck in status quo. And what if opening that pathway and learning to sit with discomfort means true liberation? What if it means that we can freeze those old patriarchal patterns, we can petrify them, and demand that we step forward directly into that discomfort so that we can welcome change, that we can welcome that freedom and liberation? I mean, what if it's Medusa in her mirror forcing us to stare unflinchingly at ourselves, right? At what scares us, instead of letting it freeze us in that comfortable silence and turn us to stone, where we're not living the life that we know that we really could be living. So we're going to explore discomfort. And what if it's not a sign that you're doing something wrong, but that huge neon sign that you're doing something profoundly right? What if that's what it is? So when I'm talking about discomfort here, I'm not talking about a physical ache or a mild inconvenience. You know, the woman at the grocery store in front of you who chose to write a check versus use her card, right? That mild inconvenience is irritating because we got somewhere to be. But I'm talking about that deep dive, that really hard emotional dig, that psychological, the spiritual discomfort that bubbles up. That's probably not even the right word. It's a fucking eruption, right? That geyser, that hot spewing stuff that the earth sends out when it's got something to say, right? And you start challenging those deep ingrained patterns and status quo that we exist within. And it is, we all participate in it. We all exist within this air that we breathe of patriarchy, right? So we've got some thinking that we need to do around it. So the first way that we might experience discomfort is going to be emotional discomfort. And this is when old wounds resurface. That's when the anger or frustration or grief about something that happened in our past, an injustice or a loss of some kind, or I don't know, something that you just can't quite let go of. And sometimes we have those things, right? And they kind of just, they show up, sometimes randomly, sometimes that weird trail of thought that takes you to this place that you thought you had forgotten, right? And maybe it's grief of realizing how much you've been conditioned, or the frustration of seeing injustice. I think for many of us in the United States currently, there's so much dehumanization happening right now. And there's so much around patriarchal culture that is harming so many of us because greed, because penis, because whiteness, because weaponizing this Bible thing, right? And so many of us have also been conditioned to participate in that, in that upbringing in some way, shape, or form. And when we're experiencing that emotional discomfort, it might not always come forward as, you know, that anger or immense sadness. It could start off as a knot in your stomach or a tightness in your chest situation too, right? So it's not always just one or the other. A lot of these are going to blend together and spiral together in a big old messy knot sometimes. And I know for me, I am the worst at recognizing my own emotion, right? Patriarchy, stoicism has taught me that being hyper feminized and being too emotional or being hysterical is not something that I can be afforded. And it has taught me to push feeling off into the distance. It's a peripheral thing. And so oftentimes for me, when something doesn't feel quite right, it's a stomach ache. Not like I'm going to be sick stomach ache, but I don't feel good in my stomach. And that's how I can recognize this is something I got to work on. That's how I recognize it. I get a knot in my stomach that tells me I've got an emotional discomfort and I need to dive into those emotions. My tip for that is, if you have an emotions wheel, and maybe I'll attach one in the show notes. If you have an emotions wheel, that's super helpful, especially if you're not good at naming your feelings. Having an emotions wheel has been really big for me. So just throwing that out there. The next one that you might feel would be cognitive discomfort. And this one's really hard, right? That's when your outward belief systems, like your religion, for example, can be in direct conflict with your external belief systems, or your internalized implicit belief systems. So I tend to use faith, specifically Euro-Christian belief systems, a lot in this example, where we're taught to love one another and we're taught to care for one another, regardless of race, religion, creed, gender identity, etc., etc. But that oftentimes is also very weaponized, especially here in the United States, where just because you're religious, you are supposed to also believe in this highly genderized patriarchal system, that it's supposed to work in coordination with your Eurocentric Christianity. And that's not how all of us believe, and that's not how all of us live life. And if you spend any amount of time with people who are not like you, who live outside of Eurocentric Christianity, for example, you're going to find out very quickly that the belief systems that you have around men and women, for example, are going to be very tied into your religion, when in fact out there in the world, the people I associate with believe in equal partnerships and shared responsibilities and being able to emote regardless if you're a man or a woman, right? And that can be in direct conflict with your external belief systems. So that's that stuff that we call normal, or that's just the way things are. And those phrases, I don't ever use the word normal. I say normal for me. That's my kind of normal. And I never say just the way things are. Because just the way things are is an excuse for not trying to change anything. So it's harmful because it's rooted in oppression. Whether it could be racist oppression, it could be patriarchal oppression, it could be capitalistic oppression. There's lots of ways to use just the way things are in a harmful, oppressive way. So when we recognize that we're saying that this is normal, or the way things should be, or just the way they are, we right there need to stop. Okay? You have some cognitive discomfort that really needs to be let in and focused on. So your brain's going to be fighting some new truths, especially if you stick around here and listen to what I'm about to be putting out here in the world. It might be very, very contrary to what you've always known, right? And that can be highly problematic, and it can shut you down, and it can make you not want to think about this or do any of this work. I'm going to push you through that. All right, we're going to talk about some ways that we can do that later. The next one is going to be social discomfort. And this is a big one because this happens as soon as you start to become aware of things and challenge your own internal belief systems, number one, or you're embodying it and speaking up, like setting a firm boundary. For me, as a people pleaser, my whole life, setting a boundary has been really hard for me. It probably seems like a really silly, stupid thing to have as a challenge in your life. But setting boundaries has always been hard for me because I want everybody to like me. But when you let everybody walk all over you, instead of speaking up for yourself, you are living the patriarchal norm, quote unquote, right? I don't want to live under patriarchal norms. I want to live under a balanced patriarchal system. And so for me, setting a boundary is actually pretty revolutionary. And it also causes a lot of discomfort, particularly when I put it out there in the world, like in my work. Back when I was a teacher, if I had a boundary and somebody stepped over my boundary, right? That deviates from a norm that I had before. And it could look like calling out a sexist joke. It could look like refusing to take on emotional labor. It can be saying no to something. I mean, saying no as a woman is kind of it is a patriarchal thing. There is an expectation that women are just supposed to say yes all the time and constantly give of ourselves instead of nope. Right? And so if we say no to something that does not align with us and our belief systems, and those things always lead to pushback, right? You'll get the awkward silences. You might feel isolated. You might even lose friends or good coworkers because all of a sudden, you know what you don't want, right? And when you don't want something, you're going to be firm about it. And that's also going to push people away because maybe they're used to being able to just shove things at you and you get them done. Or that you'll say yes just to not, create waves, right? That social discomfort can be hard to overcome because social currency is sometimes all we have as women. And women need our social currency. So that can be a fine line depending on what it is. But it is a thing that happens, right? Okay, so another aspect of discomfort is going to be the unknown. And that's when you step outside of what's familiar. Like I'm in the middle of this right now, right? I stepped away from my career of nearly 20 years and I'm starting something totally new. I have no fucking clue what is going to happen to me. I have no fucking clue where my next paycheck's coming from. I have absolutely nothing predictable in my life right now other than my very noisy Frenchie who's at my feet. And you probably heard him snoring and licking a few minutes ago, right? I have nothing predictable right now. And I'm exploring outside of what has been stable and calm and predictable for so many years. And I'm also, for the first time in my midlife, starting to experience what that exhilaration of freedom is, and not having a job to go to on the day-to-day. And I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, within reason. But I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, at any point of the day or night. And it's also incredibly uncertain. I don't know if this is going to pan out to anything. I don't know if people are going to actually go, hey, yeah, Joe, this is cool shit. I want to learn from you. I don't know if I'm going to get a call from an organization saying, hey, let's do some unlearning together. We've got some outdated practice and policy. I don't know any of that. And it's so far outside of anything I've ever done, comfort-wise for me before. It is so uncomfortable. And I'm fighting this on a day-to-day basis, even. I have the ups and the downs of I'm starting something new. I'm so excited about what I'm attempting to put together here. And at the same time, I'm so freaking scared because I have no clue what I'm doing. And when is it gonna kick in? When is somebody gonna say, hey, yeah, I'm ready to pay you? I'm ready for that, by the way. But there's extreme discomfort in the unknown. The stability I walked away from was amazing. I had health insurance. I had a paycheck every month. I could pay everything and not worry. And I have none of that now, right? None of it. And so I am legitimately building something new and starting over. at a time when I should be thinking about, a few years down the road of retirement. I'm nowhere near that. Nowhere near that. And I'm okay with that. Otherwise, I probably would have just suffered and stayed where I was. But all of these things that I'm talking about are forms of discomfort. And they're not fun, right? We don't like to think about these things. Our natural inclination is to shrink, to avoid, to numb out, to turn on the TV, to, turn on the Insta and just scroll hole is what I say. To drink, to smoke weed. These numbing exercises that we do, they help us avoid. They help us to shrink away. They help us to forget, or at least temporarily forget. But that's also the stuff that keeps us trapped in unhappiness, in unfulfillment, in a lack of feeling free. So why is discomfort so crucial for this unlearning journey? And why do we need to hold up Medusa's mirror? Because we don't grow when we're comfortable. I can tell you as an educator, I taught 7 and 8-year-olds for most of my career. And as an educator, I asked my students on a daily basis. I didn't outwardly say it, but I asked them to participate in things that were uncomfortable, because learning is uncomfortable. There are things we are innately good at, and there are things that we take lots of time and practice to learn in order to get good at them. And it's uncomfortable when we have to take lots of time and practice. We have to practice. We have to do the thing a lot, particularly when we're trying to, in this case, talking about patriarchal structures, resist, break down, be revolutionary, right? To disrupt. All of those things, we have to get uncomfortable in ourselves in order to make that discomfort ripple outward. Right? And the other analogy you might think about is exercise, if you're into exercise, right? When you work out, you're tearing your muscles little tiny bits at a time, right? And you get sore. It doesn't feel good. But you want to get stronger, so you keep doing it. And over time, you build stamina, and you build strength, and you build bulk, and you build muscle. And our emotional and psychological muscles are not really very different in that aspect. And when you feel that internal friction, it means you're breaking free. It means you're tearing down those old limiting beliefs, and you're making space for something new and revolutionary. And it means you're growing. Now, I don't know a single person out there, and maybe there are, but the people I know, we want to grow. I put myself in spaces with people who consistently want to grow and learn. We want to be better people at the end of the day. We want to leave the world in a better space for our children, our nieces and nephews, our best friends' kids, right? We want that. And so we keep growing. I am an educator at heart. I like to learn, and I think everybody should feel uncomfortable about any aspect of life at any time in order to get to a new place where you feel like you've grown. It's never easy, but growing is better than staying stagnant. So, it's also a signal that you're challenging your belief systems, right? That unlearning journey is about showing growth and showing that our old patterns are being challenged. And when you push against patriarchal norms, whether it's, internally I've recognized something and I'm going to question my belief systems now, or I'm getting to a point where that internal belief system has shifted enough that I can embody that and advocate out in the world, that external reaction, right? The system will react. The internal or external is the discomfort. The reaction is the discomfort. And so the old pattern of pushing back and trying to keep you in line is exactly what patriarchy is. It thrives on status quo. It thrives on things remaining the same. It thrives on harm and oppression. Harm and oppression is exactly what it's there for. And here's the thing that's really powerful, is that when pushback happens, it means you've created movement. You're disrupting status quo. So if you get the side eye from a coworker because you set that boundary, right? You're pushing, you're creating movement in a new direction. When you stand up at a school board meeting and you tell them that their practice is outdated and it's harming children, not just your child, but a multitude of children who also have similar experiences, you're disrupting status quo. That's what gets us to a better place. Thirdly, discomfort is a pathway to new insights, new learning, and it forces you to pay attention. And when things feel easy and we coast, we stop learning. Again, comfort, we stop. It's not a place for growth. And we need that. We need to rest, right? We have to have time to rest, but we can't just coast indefinitely. We have to constantly be aware of what might be harmful and how we might be able to shift our belief systems. Because when we're uncomfortable, our senses sharpen. We see clearer suddenly. We hear things differently, right? Those things become a huge aspect to the intake of information. And it's in these moments where we start asking why, right? I wonder why. That is the thing. I wonder why. Suddenly we're looking for solutions and deeper understanding. And when we get to those moments, that's when the unease happens, right? But it's also where our biggest breakthroughs happen. And that's when we're forced to see what's going on. Maybe for the first time. Maybe it is Medusa forcing you to see yourself. And maybe it's unsettling because when we challenge old belief systems, that internal argument that you have with yourself about being complicit or being silent in times when, in a retrospect, really needed your voice, right? But ultimately, aren't you becoming clearer and more beautifully vibrant because now you know better? You're stepping into your higher self, and your higher self has a really, really clear understanding of that thing now. Right? Might feel off for a minute, but once you have clear understanding, now you see, and now you feel bigger. You feel like you've stepped into yourself. And then it also builds resilience. And while I kind of struggle with the word resilient, right? Like, I can't wait for a time when I don't have to be resilient. And resilience also has a great place as a tool for survival. And it supports innovation and creativity. And every time you lean into discomfort instead of running from it, you're building that resilience. You're building that creativity. You're building problem solving. You're being innovative, right? And you build capacity to handle more because now you can embody it and you can take it out there in the world and dismantle those pieces that you see so clearly. And you can survive it and surpass it and pass it on to younger generations or a really good friend who hadn't seen it before, and now you've got two of you tackling it together because it takes a village for all of this to happen. You can move through it and you can help others move through it too. And knowing that we're building collective resilience, this is powerful. It's a hugely powerful tool in petrifying patriarchy. So what if we can't avoid discomfort? And we can't. It's a natural part of existing as a human. How do we actually become comfortable with it? So it's not about loving the feeling, right? I'm never going to say being uncomfortable is super fun. But it is about changing your relationship with it and approaching it like a hero on a quest, for example. And it is also about understanding that once you've gotten through the most challenging piece of it, now you know better. Now you can do better. And when you have that powerful shift, that's what makes you want to do more. Because you know you can. Now let's do more. Let's bite off a bigger chunk this time. So here are some ways that we can shift mindset, all right? So number one is going to be to cultivate curiosity, not judgment. There is a huge difference. And I'm going to dive into, so it's a huge aspect of patriarchal culture, but women against women. We have a hierarchical structure in our society, and that hierarchical structure really disallows women to empower each other just for the sake of understanding what it's like to live as a woman in the United States, okay? And because we still are vying for that bigger seat at the table, or the promotion at work, or some prestigious title, right? When we're vying against men, but we also have to vie against women. And it's not about judging each other and harming each other and being mean girls about it. We have to support each other and cultivate curiosity around each other instead of causing more harm. Patriarchy thrives in us infighting. And so when we do the judgment mean girl thing, we are following patriarchal guidelines to keep certain women in certain places. All right, I won't dive much deeper than that right now. But when we cultivate curiosity, instead of judging, we judge ourselves just as much. So instead of judging yourself and saying something like, I'm so weak, or I shouldn't feel this way, instead turn it around and ask, what is happening? What am I feeling right now? What is it trying to tell me? Right? We have to start thinking about the message of discomfort as a welcome gift and not an enemy. All right? And outwardly, same thing. Like, we've got to stop it with the judgment with other women. Right? Now, we've got to stop with that judgment. Can we look at them with curiosity and go, what exactly am I needing to learn here right now? Do I need to come back at this person with some succinct information and data to prove a different point? Or do I need to, debate this person on why I would be a better candidate than they would be a better candidate, without tearing each other down, but by sharing experiences, right? Cultivate curiosity. Let's not judge and tear each other down. All right? The second approach to altering mindset is going to be practicing self-compassion. And you just have to know you're doing really hard work. It's brave work, too. And you're just going to have to tell yourself, I know this is hard. I know it feels weird, and I know it's hard. And don't beat yourself up for having emotions or feeling awkward. Patriarchy doesn't want us to feel. So by feeling, you're already being revolutionary, number one. And number two, allow yourself to say, hey, it's okay. Totally normal to feel this way. Part of the process. Just be with it, right? Talk to yourself like you're your own best friend. We talk to ourselves like we are our biggest enemy 9 times out of 10. And again, another patriarchal thing, right? Let's stop that right now. The more we can approach our own beings with grace and to give ourselves the okay, the more we break down a system that has wanted to harm us forever. The third part is going to be grounding yourself. This one is important because we often numb out and we don't take the time to allow ourselves to feel the discomfort, especially when it's overwhelming. And for those of us who are neurospicy, that overwhelming can take over and we can just absolutely stop. that overwhelm is so big for some of us. And when we get into that space of overwhelm, we are frozen in a past that we can't change, and we're hyper fixated on a future that hasn't happened yet. We need to be present. So when we're grounding ourselves, we're forcing ourselves to be right now and be in that discomfort. We can lessen it. It doesn't make it go away totally, but we can take it on. Take your deep breaths. Go outside, take your shoes off, and put your feet in the dirt. Go touch some trees. Go lay in the grass. Stand there and listen. What is closest to you? What is furthest from you? Is there a scent to the air? What can you taste right now? Because sometimes the air tastes, right? Grounding helps you stay present with that discomfort without being completely consumed by the overwhelm. Again, I know it's easy, and I'm guilty of it too. It's so easy to just go turn on the TV and veg out. So easy. Ground yourself. Be in nature. And if you can't be in nature, my biggest trick is tea. You're literally drinking a garden. Black tea, green tea, white tea, red tea, herbal tea, all of it comes from plants. You're just reconstituting plants and you're drinking a garden. Ground yourself with some tea. The fourth thing is to identify the trigger or name the pattern. Simply by being aware. What you can ask yourself will be, what triggered my discomfort? Was it a comment? Did a boundary get stepped over? Was it an internalized belief system that I just now recognized? Did I suddenly recognize my complicitness in something that's very problematic, right? Was I silent when I should have spoken up? These are things that are going to come up. And it's okay. Take some time to be with it. Identify it and name it, because once you have done that, you're already disrupting what's going on inside of you and future problematic things. But then think, can you connect it to a characteristic or a dimension of my patriarchal characteristics? And we're going to be diving deeper into these as we go. So if you don't know them yet, that's okay. You can also go to my website and download my document that I've spent a year researching. Can you connect to one of those things? Can you find what specific aspect of patriarchal culture, or aspects, because it's not always just one, right? And then name it. Oh, I did the women against women thing today. I judged another lady. Or, I was mean girling it by the water cooler, right? Name it, because you're reducing its power and you're recognizing that you have some work to do. And what's the likelihood you're going to recognize it before it happens next time? Right? So focus on your why is 5. If you don't know your why, you might need to sit down and think about, what is it specifically that makes you want to do this work? Why do you want to shift your own patriarchal belief systems? Why do you want to adjust the culture that you exist within, right? And it's also important to ask yourself why you're willing to be uncomfortable, because it is very, 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 very much uncomfortable work, right? For me, I love the feeling of discomfort because I know I'm growing and learning something new. And I place myself very specifically in spaces where I am intentionally not like other people in the room, because I'm going to be able to grow and learn a lot in those spaces, right? So if you're willing to be uncomfortable, find groups. For me, it's mixed race groups that I spend a lot of time with outside of, immediate family. And I learn more about how our structures exist and perform and work to continue to harm some of the people that I absolutely love. And I'm willing to be uncomfortable in that, because I then can make changes that I wouldn't have been able to recognize or take care of before, right? So focus on your why. Why are you willing to be uncomfortable? Are you looking for freedom of thought, freedom of status quo, liberation, right? Is this for future generations? Is it for a more balanced world? What is your why? What is that fuel that helps you lean into the fire? Because you're going to get hot. And number 6, take those tiny, tiny, brave little steps. It's not like, you need to wake up tomorrow and decide that you're going to run for state senate when you've never spoken in public before, right? That's a pretty big leap. There are people who've probably done that before. Great. Awesome. Good for you. And if it's something you really want to do, why not? Why not do it? But you don't have to start there, is what I'm saying. Start small. Start by practicing that little boundary and see how you can keep that up and what happens when somebody may not respect it. Question those thoughts. Question the bad joke, right? Because each of those tiny steps builds confidence in your abilities to fight something that is unseen. And it also builds capacity to be able to do more. So remember, this is not about eradicating discomfort. We're not going to be able to do that. It's just not possible. But it is about shifting from reacting against it to responding with intention and knowledge and wisdom. And it's about turning that petrifying gaze outward at the patriarchy, because that's what we need to freeze, not us. We don't need to freeze us. We're already frozen, most of us, because we're so stuck in the system. We're so stuck in this culture. So we've got to turn that mirror around so that the system itself can freeze and we can grow. All right, so as you continue your journey of petrifying the patriarchy, remember, discomfort is going to be your guide. Listen to your gut. Is it upset right now? Maybe you have some emotional discomfort that you haven't addressed yet, right? It's the signal that you're pushing past old limits, you're transforming internal wounds, and you're truly reclaiming your power. And it's the challenging part of this heroic journey that ultimately leads to deep wisdom and profound change. And embrace it like a friend, an ally. Work with it, not against it. So next time, we're going to explore something that's deeply intertwined with discomfort and patriarchal conditioning, which is the cost of self-abandonment. Because so often we silence ourselves to fit the needs of patriarchal expectations. And just for the sake of being aware, I'm setting the stage right now and talking about some pretty big overarching themes before we get really molecular. And I want to do that to make sure that moving forward, when we're talking in these molecular little nuances of patriarchal culture, that we have a broader sense of what's important when we dive deep. And so today, obviously, being comfortable with discomfort, and then next time talking about the cost of self-abandonment, that is a big part of what helps patriarchal systems thrive. And so if we can talk about this as a kind of an overarching umbrella in order to get to the raindrops, that's how we're going to do that. All right. So if today's conversation resonated with that deep knowing in your bones, please, please, please subscribe to Petrify the Patriarchy so you don't miss an episode. And hey, for any deeper dives or wanting personalized guidance and access to my unique frameworks, please go to my website at movingmaxim.com, and you can also find me on the socials at either Moving Maxim or Moving Maxim LLC. You can also email me, movingmaxim@gmail.com, and I'll be sure to link those things in the notes for you. And I applaud you for your strength in showing up. And thank you for showing up, because this is really powerful work. So until next time, may you find the courage to stare in Medusa's mirror. And transmute discomfort into your greatest strength. Joby signing off until next time.